This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
According to the Israeli army, 3 of its soldiers were killed and 5 others were wounded in pre-dawn clashes with members of the Palestinian resistance in the eastern Gaza Strip. In addition, 4 activists from the Izz-ad-Din Qassam brigades were martyred in the clashes.
Moreover, a Palestinian leader from the Jerusalem brigades was martyred in an earlier Israeli raid on the area of Jabalia in the northern Gaza Strip.
We are pleading to you before God to rally behind the Palestinian people. They destroyed us, and no one is feeling our pain.
As soon as an Israeli incursion ends in one area, another incursion starts in another. After ending its incursion in the Shaja'iyya and Zaytun neighborhoods east of Gaza, the Israeli army carried out another incursion in the area of Jahr al-Dik in the south. The Israeli forces left behind massive property damage, targeting everything in sight, including homes, factories, schools, mosques, and hospitals.
They destroyed our homes and wreaked havoc in the entire area. Our neighbor's home was destroyed. They even destroyed God's home.
The Jews want to destroy us. They cut off the roads. We can't travel from one area to another. They destroyed our homes and the homes of our children.
Clashes erupted for several hours between members of the Palestinian resistance and the Israeli army in the eastern part of Gaza and the area of Jahr al-Dik, where several activists from the Izz-ad-Din Qassam brigades were martyred and several others were wounded. In addition, several Israeli soldiers were killed and several others were wounded in the clashes.
By the way, there is no cooling off period in effect between us and the occupation. The occupation is vowing to commit more crimes, and we are vowing to continue the resistance. We will counter any Israeli force entering into the Gaza Strip.
The military escalation has become a public Israeli policy, as evident from the repeated raids and incursions in the Gaza Strip. What also is evident is that the Israeli army started to endure losses in each military operation, despite its military superiority over the resistance.
The Hamas terrorist regime in Gaza continues to try to kill Israeli civilians, and they continue with their military buildup. The Israeli Defense Forces are acting to protect our people.
Over the past few months, and through its ongoing aggression on the Gaza Strip, Israel has been more violent. Also, its attacks have been different from those launched in the West Bank. This is due to the fact that Israel has considered the Gaza Strip a hostile entity.
These are the different faces of the Israeli policy that is mandating how Israel would deal with the internal Palestinian state of affairs. On one side, Israel continues its military escalation and suffocating blockade on the Gaza Strip, and on the other, Israel continues to negotiate with the Palestinians.
We open with a flare-up of deadly violence in Gaza. 3 IDF soldiers were killed early today in an exchange of heavy gunfire with Palestinian terrorists next to the Gaza Strip security fence. 2 other soldiers were wounded. The army has identified one of the soldiers killed as 19-year-old Corporal Matan Ovdat from Moshav Patishi. He'll be laid to rest this evening in Ofakim. The other 2 soldiers were both Bedouin, one of them Minhash al-Binat of Kseife. He was buried this afternoon. At least 4 terrorists were killed in a separate incident in Gaza today. IBA's Dennis Zinn has this report.
Initial details released on the early morning attack indicate that the Palestinians carried out a well-planned and executed ambush. 3 IDF soldiers were killed and 3 others wounded. There were no casualties on the Palestinian side, and the gunmen escaped unharmed. At around 6 a.m. this morning in foggy light, IDF spotters noticed suspicious movements close to the border fence in the central sector of the Gaza Strip, close to Kibbutz Be'eri. A force from the Givati Brigade's Tsabar battalion crossed into the Palestinian side to scout the area and engage the terrorists if necessary. The force was suddenly subjected to intense fire from some 6 terrorists hiding in well-protected and commanding positions. 2 soldiers were shot dead, 4 were wounded and evacuated to Soroka Hospital in Beersheba. 1 died soon after as doctors were unable to stabilize his condition. 2 others were admitted in moderate state and 1 with light injuries. The soldiers who took part in the attack said they failed to identify the location of the terrorists, as did the IDF gunners deployed along the fence. Nevertheless, officers in the Southern Command this morning said the force operated as is expected in all stages of the clash, that is, including returning fire and preparing to assault the terrorists, and finally evacuating the wounded and retreating. They said that the IDF has a high record of success in preventing daily attacks along the Gaza border. However, they added, the terrorists constantly watch the IDF forces to learn their movements in order to try and outwit them. Sometimes they succeed. The Hamas organization claimed responsibility for this attack.
The Hamas terrorist regime in Gaza continues to try to kill Israeli civilians, and they continue with their military buildup. The Israeli Defense Forces are acting to protect our people.
Besides the clash near Kibbutz Be'eri, during the night, fighting also took place in the Jazeera neighborhood east of Gaza City. An IDF force searching for terrorists and terrorist weapons demolished a structure packed with explosives that was situated adjacent to a mosque. In the exchanges, 4 terrorists were killed and several others wounded. 1 IDF soldier was airlifted to hospital in moderate condition. Dennis Zinn, IBA News.
Some have expressed concern over the recording of cancer cases in the Negev desert and in the southern West Bank due to leaks from the 45-year-old Dimona reactor, which is suffering from cracks in its walls. In a study conducted by a Palestinian expert, high levels of uranium were found in soil samples in the southern West Bank.
ما زالت حالة مفاعل ديمونة الإسرائيلي تثير القلق خاصة بعد
The case of the Israeli Dimona reactor is still causing fear, especially after the recent rise in the number of cancer cases recorded in the southern West Bank. According to a recent Palestinian study, the Israeli reactor, which is now old and has been outdated for more than 10 years, is suffering from cracks to its walls, and the level of radioactive substances leaking from it is very high. The Negev desert and the city of Hebron in the southern West Bank are among the areas affected by the leaking radioactive substances. While the level of uranium in the soil shouldn't exceed 30 tikrel per kilogram, the study shows a high level of uranium in soil samples tested in the town of Halhul in the county of Hebron, where it has reached 105 tikrel per kilogram. In the town of Beit Omar in the county of Hebron, the level of uranium in the soil stands at 98 tikrel per kilogram. In addition, the study shows that the radioactive substance leaking from Dimona is causing birth defects, miscarriages, and infertilities among men and women in the southern Palestinian territories. Meanwhile, Israel is not disclosing any information about the state of its Dimona nuclear reactor. Israel asked for the help of the U.S. to secure the Dimona reactor, in which both sides signed an agreement in this regard. This has caused concern over the safety of the Dimona reactor. Zina Al-Fayez, Al-Arabiya.
زين الفايز العربية.
The 6 leading countries that met in China have failed to find a solution to the Iranian nuclear program. This comes after the Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad made inflammatory comments saying that what happened in September 11 of 2001 is a suspicious act. Ahmadinejad misstated the date, saying that the attacks took place 4 years ago instead of 2001.
For the second time, China has called for holding talks on its territories in order to find a solution to Iran's nuclear program. China has been very careful not to jeopardize its large oil and economic cooperation with Tehran. This time, however, China, as a host country, is facing a challenge. It must play what political observers called a magical mediation role. Beijing must look for new ways to convince Iran to stop its uranium enrichment program, something that the entire international community has failed to achieve for the past months and years.
We have a joint statement by our ministers.
We have released a joint press statement last March in which we confirmed our commitment to negotiations as a way of reaching a solution for the Iranian nuclear program. We are willing to develop the ideas that we have, and today we feel optimistic about the results of these negotiations.
These negotiations were overshadowed by Ahmadinejad's announcement that Iran will expand its nuclear program by installing an additional 6,000 new centrifuge systems for uranium enrichment in Natanz nuclear facility, where 3,000 systems are already in operation. Ahmadinejad's statement raises the question whether Washington and Tehran should have direct negotiations to resolve the chronic disputes between them. Some American leaders are becoming more vocal about this matter. Hussein Shahada, Al-Arabiya.
Joining us from Tehran, political analyst Dr. Abbas Khamyar. The Iranian president makes statements that can be considered provocative from the perspectives of Israel and even Washington, especially when considering that the statements were made while the negotiations over Iran's nuclear program were ongoing. Why?
Truly, I think that Iran has confidence in itself on this issue. The meeting is a positive initiative, but I think that Ahmadinejad believes that Iran's nuclear file must be discussed in its natural place, which is the International Atomic Energy Agency. The nuclear file must be negotiated under its supervision because Iran has been committed to the laws of this organization and has been operating within the framework of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and under the supervision of international inspectors.
China is now pushing for negotiations, and the 6 leading countries are meeting to find a solution for Iran's nuclear program. Doesn't this make Iran's position more complicated? Don't statements like those that were made by Ahmadinejad complicate the situation for Tehran and result in its isolation?
Yes, I think that some European countries are not looking for justifications. The justifications are there, and they can be persistent on using these justifications. I think that everyone in Tehran thinks that Iran's nuclear program has been greatly politicized. Iran is on the right path. There are other important issues involved. The U.S. wants Iran to be within the American sphere of influence and to be subjected to orders from Washington, but Tehran has refused to do this for the past 3 decades. I think that the problem stems from the fact that Iran refuses to be subjected to Washington.
Leader of the Islamic Revolution, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, says the armed forces are duty-bound to defend the country and they should maintain their highest level of combat preparedness. Speaking to a group of senior army commanders on the eve of the Army Day, the leader congratulated all army personnel and their families on the occasion. The commander-in-chief of the armed forces added that the capabilities of the Iranian army are high, and through innovation and initiatives, by relying on its scientific potentials, it can attain self-sufficiency in many areas, thus winning the applause of the observers. President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad said the U.S. invaded Afghanistan and Iraq under the pretext of September 11th terror attacks. The president, who arrived in the shrine city of Qom this morning, told the residents of the holy city over 1 million people have so far been killed in the occupied Iraq, and tens of thousands of civilians have been massacred in Afghanistan after U.S. forces invaded the 2 countries. President Ahmadinejad pointed out that the global arrogance and its hegemonic powers, that is, objectives, are the root cause of all human calamities. Elsewhere in his remarks, the president said the nation favors logical and fair negotiation on Iran's nuclear program away from the current approach the bullying powers are practicing. Still in Qom, a petrochemical complex was inaugurated over which $23 billion have been spent. The nominal production capacity of the complex stands at 30,000 tons of painting and phthalic anhydride, which turns Iran into an exporter of the products. The 13th International Oil, Gas and Petrochemical Exhibition opened in Tehran with 860 domestic and over 500 foreign oil companies from 30 countries participating. On the sidelines of the exhibition, Oil Minister Ghulam Hossein Nozari said there is no need for OPEC act to lower oil prices that have reached record highs, describing current prices as suitable, adding, the current high crude price has been caused by a plunge in the dollar. Turning to investment in Iran's oil and gas sectors, Nozari said Total company should announce its decision on investment in the Phase 11 of Iran's South Pars gas field not later than June 20th. Meanwhile, Vice President of Total's Iran office, Andrei Gufart, spoke to our reporter Zahra Shahili on the prospect of investment in Iran.
We are here obviously to meet the responsibles of the oil and gas industry in Iran, to discuss our projects, ongoing and future projects. Iran is a large oil and gas producer, and we know that it will remain so, and we want to be present in Iran for the long term. I'm quite confident that with the value of gas today on the market, we can find a solution, we can find an agreement to have a good project both for the investors and for Iran.
With teary eyes and hearts filled with love and longing for their steadfast relatives across the fence, students from our dear Golan Heights said goodbye.
After many deliberate and arbitrary foot-dragging and delays by the Israeli occupation forces, 30 male and female students are crossing over to their steadfast villages after graduating from their nation's university.
After many deliberate and arbitrary foot-dragging delays of the date for their return to their steadfast villages by the Israeli occupation forces, 30 male and female students who completed their education and studies at the nation's universities and institutes returned to the occupied Syrian Golan Heights today under the supervision of the International Emergency Forces working in Golan. At the crossing point, dozens of meters away from our beloved Golan Heights, students bid their farewells to family and loved ones across the fence.
Who did you say goodbye to right now?
My fiancé.
Will he wait for you there and you'll be married upon returning?
Yes, I don't know when we'll get married, but he will wait for me.
Now, your family will hear you. What will you say to them?
That I miss them very much, and God willing, I will see you soon.
As they carry bags filled with memories, their spirit is filled with the aroma of the Damascus jasmine flower. In their hearts is their national number of the Syrian identity card, which they have not and will never replace.
We received an identity card with our national ID number, but this identity is in our hearts, not necessarily on an ID card. This is the good feeling I have when I return this year. Anyone who has such identity should be proud of having such national Arab and Syrian identity. It is expressed in feelings and emotions.
I sent a message, and I will take it back with me, a message from Damascus. The aroma of jasmine flowers in Damascus, and my love for Damascus, my friends and the city. All these, of course, are memories which will always remain. these memories that can't be erased by time or anyone. I would just say that may God bring our families together.
The deputy mayor of the Quneitra province, the engineer Mohammed Kanefis, impressed on the students' national pride and his pride over the steadfastness of the Golan residents, who are rooted in the land, the Arab identity of the Golan Heights, and its continued affiliation to the motherland, Syria, its people, government, and political leadership led by the Honorable President Bashar al-Assad.
Amidst political showdown over the implementation of a new voting system in Kuwait, the nomination process and the early parliamentary elections are underway. After facing a strong opposition, the Kuwaiti government decided to withdraw a very controversial law, which puts restrictions on public gatherings. Ahmad Al-Anizi reports from Kuwait.
With the opening of the political doors to nominations, the countdown started in the Kuwaiti parliamentary elections. On the first day, more than 100 nominees from various political blocs submitted their nomination papers. While the local tribes held primary elections to select their candidates, the political blocs finalized their party lists. Meanwhile, the independents are entering the race, hoping to win the remaining undecided votes.
We hope for a new era, a new council, a new government, and a better way of dealing with the Constitution and the record of civil liberty. We also hope that the law banning public gatherings will not pass.
Meanwhile, the Kuwaiti opposition is strengthening its position before entering the election battle. The women, who are less fortunate than their male counterparts, continue to believe in destiny and the support of their female peers.
I strongly demand the women's organizations in the various coalitions and alliances use their positions as a pressuring tool in order to give women the opportunity to represent their peers in the parliament.
The attack by the Kuwaiti opposition on the proposed bill that bans public gatherings has led to its postponement until the next National Assembly meeting. The opposition described the new law as a coup d'etat against the Kuwaiti constitution.
This law on public gatherings restricts freedoms and contradicts the Constitution. If this law passes, I believe it will pass dead.
With the opening of the door to nominations, the election campaigns started and will likely continue until May 17, which is election day. Between the attack of the opposition on the Kuwaiti government and the tribal primary elections, the Kuwaiti public is waiting for the upcoming legislative elections, provided no political developments arise which could wipe out the entire election process. Ahmed Al-Anizi, Dubai TV, Kuwait.
The Jordanian government signed an agreement with the TNT International Courier Service to establish a new system for regulating the entry visa process for Iraqis wishing to visit the kingdom through its 13 offices in Iraq, starting from the middle of this month. After the signing ceremony, the Jordanian Interior Minister Eid Al-Fayez said that the agreement was made in response to a request by the Iraqi government in order to regulate the entry visa process for Iraqis who want to enter Jordan.
Iraqis living in Jordan are suffering because they can't obtain visas to stay in the country. Those who decide to stay must pay accumulated fees that increase their burdens, not to mention their suffering at the educational and health levels. Efforts by Iraqi policymakers in the country and abroad were fruitful. Vice President Tariq al-Hashimi obtained an agreement from the Jordanian king, Abdullah II, to waive fees for visa violations by Iraqis who wish to leave Jordan, as a way to make it easier for them to return to Iraq. Based on orders from the Jordanian king and in a response to a request from the Iraqi government, visas will be issued to Iraqis who wish to enter Jordan. Knowledgeable sources in the Jordanian Interior Ministry said that the Jordanian government will not waive fees for visa violations after April 17th. Also, David Shearer, Deputy Special Representative for the UN Secretary General, said that urgent funds totaling $250 million will be provided to Iraq's neighboring countries in 2008 for hosting displaced Iraqis during the past 12 months. He also said that there is an urgent need to help Iraqis who are displaced inside their country.
The Washington Post quoted a senior American official saying that the United States will pressure the Iraqi government to increase the financial aid allocated to Iraqi nationals living in Jordan and Syria. The State Department's Iraq refugee coordinator, James Foley, said that the $25 million that was allocated by the Iraqi government to the refugees last year is symbolic. He agreed with the Arab League representative that the Iraqi government should play the main role in securing the needs of the refugees, especially when considering that it has the necessary means. The costs of aiding Iraqi families living abroad are estimated to reach $900 million this year. Foley pointed out that the United States has donated $208 million towards this end. Sweden announced that it will host a conference on the development of Iraq on May 29th, which supposedly will be attended by United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and the Iraqi Prime Minister Noor al-Maliki. Sweden's Foreign Minister Carl Bildt told reporters that the United States Secretary of State may participate in the conference. More than 60 countries participated in the Madrid Donors Conference in 2003, during which a pledge of $30 billion was made to Iraq, most of which in the form of debt cancellations.
مع العراق الذي تمخض عن تعهدات لتقديم $30 مليار معظمها في شكل إلغاء للديون.
Well, reports of atrocities and conflict in Sudan's Darfur region are relatively well known. Many aid officials are drawing parallels with another conflict, the battle for Ogaden. For the last 10 years, the Ethiopian military has been involved in a hidden war for the Ogaden region. As the unrest continues, the area's ethnic Somali women have joined the battle for independence and security. In the second part of our exclusive series, Mohammed Addo reports on Ogaden's female fighters.
Nim'o Badal is one of Ogadeni rebels' women fighters. She is on a path many fear to tread. She says she was forced into this life by circumstances.
The Ethiopian troops imprisoned me and my brother. They killed him in front of my eyes and then they raped me. They killed my husband as well. Seeking security, I joined the fighters.
It is such atrocities that have forced many women in Ogaden to choose to fight alongside the hardened male fighters. This woman spent many years of her life fighting against the Ethiopian presence in the region. She skillfully handles her weapon. Getting prepared for battles ahead, she cleans her rifle. She says she will stop at nothing but the independence of her region.
Lots of blood has been shed for this country. It is our hope that our struggle will achieve good results. We will achieve victory.
Guerrilla fighting is a new addition to the many chores women in Ogaden have to shoulder. As men increasingly get involved in the war or flee from it, the task of bringing up children has also been left exclusively to them. They also tend the livestock, which is the main source of livelihood here. Women too are the ones who do the special prayers for their people.
Our children die of hunger. Others die uneducated, knowing nothing about their religion. We gathered under this tree to pray for Allah's help.
The stories of these women reveal the brutality of Ethiopia's hidden war, a brutal counter-insurgency that some aid officials believe has parallels with Darfur, but is yet to catch the world's attention. Mohammed Addo, Al Jazeera.
Get more news about the Middle East online at linktv.org/Mosaic. The Mosaic webpage offers a complete archive of Mosaic programs, program transcripts, the Mosaic video podcast, and the Mosaic Intelligence Report, a weekly analysis of the hottest stories from the Middle East. The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible with the support of viewers like you. Thank you. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.